Hey there, and welcome to Temporary Locals.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Megan. This week, we're taking you through some of the stories of ghosts of Dixie, which is the southeastern United States. We'll get into that more in a little bit. But for those of you who don't know, Jared and I are a travel loving couple who somehow always end up feeling like locals wherever we go. From small towns to some of the world's most iconic wonders, we share our stories, hidden gems, and occasional history or true crime that's shaped the places that we've actually been. So if you're into travel, storytelling, and a little bit of mystery, then you are in the right place. We would love it if you would stick around and subscribe and join us for the ride. And as always, we appreciate any other methods of free support, such as sharing the episode, liking, commenting, leaving a review. Love all of that. And then just a reminder, Temporary Locals is now available on Apple Podcasts, as well as all the usual places like Spotify and YouTube. So thanks again, everybody, for the support. You can now find us on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. This is part 4 of our Halloween special.
Yep.
We've done 3 other episodes for the month of October, and this one is extra special because instead of talking about one specific destination, we're going to be talking about haunted places, stories, and tales from the entire southeastern United States.
Yeah, this is a really exciting one. It might be a little bit longer. We'll see. Our outline looks a little longer than our average podcast, but
Yeah, for sure.
We're covering a few states that we would call the Southeast.
Yeah. I think it's kind of a debate on what is actually considered the South. I think it varies depending on whether you live in the North or the South. I think a lot of people would consider the Mason-Dixon line as the border between the North and South, but there's obviously debate around that and some contention because no one would consider states like Maryland or Delaware southern states.
I don't even consider like Virginia.
Yeah, Virginia to me is not a southern state either. I mean, I know that Virginians probably feel differently, but to me, Virginia is just, South DC.
Yeah.
And to go even further than that, I barely consider North Carolina a southern state.
Ooh, just because it says the word North.
Yeah, if your state has the word North in it, you're not really the South. But you have the South and then you have the Deep South, and so yeah, I don't think the Mason-Dixon line is a really good indicator for what's considered the South, especially when we're talking like culturally. And likewise, if you go too far south and you get down into Florida, it's not really the South anymore either going that way. No one would consider Miami a southern city.
Yeah. Fair
So
point.
I've come up with a metric on how to judge whether or not you're in the South. And everyone listening, please feel free to use this. But I judge whether or not I'm in the South based on sweet tea.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So
if you're not from the South, okay, and that's just another like kind of nuance of, you go to a local restaurant or a McDonald's or whatever, and you order a sweet tea.
Mm-hmm.
Down south, you get a sweet tea.
Right.
Up north, they don't even they just, here's a unsweet tea.
Yeah, if you are at a restaurant or any establishment that serves food or bev, and you order a sweet tea, and they bring you actual sweet tea, then you're in fact in the South. However, if they bring you iced tea with sugar packets, you're no longer in the South, and also fuck them.
I know. It's so gross because it's cold, right? So the sugar doesn't dissolve. It's just granulated sugar in tea. It's not sweet tea.
Yeah. So that's the metric I use. And I've told this story before because I've debated with people who said, "What do you mean Florida's not the South? It's the most south you can go." And it's like, yeah, geographically, but not culturally. Like, I remember I was in Cocoa Beach in Florida, and we were at a restaurant, and I ordered sweet tea, and the lady brought me iced tea and sugar packets, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm not in the South anymore.
Yeah, you traitor.
Because you would never do that here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gross.
So that's kind of the way I judge it, and I think I should patent that. But yeah, everybody, if you feel free to use that, that's how you can determine whether you're in the South or not.
It's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, rule of thumb. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we just debunked the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah. Okay, so with that said, we are going to be sharing some haunted places from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and Louisiana. And in temporary locals fashion, we'll be talking about places that we've actually been or almost went to. And we'll tell you the ones that we haven't gone to, but they just kind of fit into the episode. And also for the Tennessee segment, we'll be having on guest Brittney Moore to share her experiences at the Bell Witch Cave. So looking forward to that. But we did want to check some history before. So typical temporary locals episodes, we don't share, like, we don't have to do a whole lot of research because we're sharing our lived experiences. But for these Halloween episodes, we wanted to dive into a little bit of the history, and obviously we don't know all the history from memory, so our sources for this episode are wikipedia.org, discoversouthcarolina.com, hiltonhead.com, Palmetto State Paranormal, atlasobscura.com, onlyinyourstate.com, ashevilleterrors.com, augustamuseum.org, officialbellwitchcave.com, southernmostghosts.com, and ghostcitytours.com.
Yeah. So diving into the first state we're going to go through, we're going to North Carolina, and we're going to do Helen's Bridge in Asheville.
Yeah, and so Asheville was a place that we've talked about before. We spent a lot of time in Asheville. So this is actually a location that we didn't go to, but we researched. And because we researched it, I said, no, I don't want to go there.
Yeah. Yeah, we were all but going to go. It's one of those few places that in Asheville, I guess, that we probably haven't actually been to.
Yeah.
But due to the fact that we spent so much time in Asheville, it's kind of close to home, and it's a really cool story with some cool history. So
yeah, and also like when we were in Asheville, it was in December, so it was in the winter, and it just felt like more spooky, I guess. So if we were to go here, but anyways, without further ado, we're going into Helen's Bridge, and this is a bridge that was constructed in 1909 out of quarried stone and was intended to provide access to a nearby mansion. And the legend of Helen's Bridge says that a woman named, you guessed it, Helen, lived at or near that mansion with her daughter. And it's said that Helen's daughter died in a fire and that Helen hung herself from that very bridge. So the legend kind of says that her distraught spirit still appears when her name is called. And so people will go to this bridge and they report having issues like restarting their car when they try to leave. So when I heard that, I was like, I'm not doing that. I don't want any ghost, witchy, haunted stuff going on with my car. We're not doing it.
yeah. And I feel like there's other stories of other haunted bridges. I think the Gervais Street Bridge here in Columbia is also haunted, and I think it's kind of the same thing where you see the spirits that hung themselves from the bridge at night. That's the paranormal activity that people have reported
Yeah.
in the past. So I think that's kind of common down here. I don't know why it seemed like so many people back in the day hung themselves from bridges, but or I guess a lot of people jump from the bridges to commit suicide. That's another thing people do.
Yeah.
But yeah, bridges are historically haunted in a lot of places.
Yeah, and I guess just that like negative energy of whatever they were experiencing kind of ties them to that location.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. So very interesting.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll try it. We'll go out there, but I don't know. It spooked me enough when we were reading about it that I was like, I do not want to be caught in this bridge in our car in the dark and like stuck and not able to move.
Especially it being such an old bridge, and it can be kind of creepy to drive across it. And so yeah, if anybody is in the Asheville area or goes to the Asheville area, check out Helen's Bridge. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. Tell us if you've been there too. If you're
Yeah.
listening and you've been there and whether you experienced something or not, let us know.
Yeah, but especially if you've experienced something.
Yeah, especially we want all the stories.
Yeah,
If you want to, you can email it to us at TemporaryLocalsPod@gmail.com.
that's right. We like hearing from our fans.
Yeah. And maybe if the story's cool enough, we'll read it on the pod.
Yeah.
All right. The next location in North Carolina is similar to, we just did an episode on the USS Yorktown, which is in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. But we're not talking about that today. We are talking about another naval ship, the USS North Carolina in Wilmington.
Mm-hmm.
So the USS North Carolina was the lead ship of North Carolina class battleships and the fourth warship in the United States. So if you remember the Yorktown episode, that was the 10th.
10th, yeah. So this one's even older.
Yeah. She was the first newly constructed American battleship to enter service during World War II and took part in every major naval offensive in the Pacific Theater of Operations. Her 15 battle stars made her the most decorated American battleship of World War II.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So this ship was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1986 and is now also like the Yorktown Museum ship and memorial kept at the seaport of Wilmington, North Carolina, which we mentioned.
The USS North Carolina's primary role was protecting aircraft carriers. And speaking of aircraft carriers, you can visit one on the stern of the ship. It's one of the 9 surviving Kingfisher aircraft. That particular aircraft was salvaged from a mountainside in British Columbia in 1964, and it was restored. So, really cool history. A lot like the Yorktown. There's a lot of interesting history to go along with it.
Yeah, it's also a museum ship, and you can visit,
Right.
like you just said, aircraft. I'm sure there's more aircraft than just that one on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just super cool place to visit. I have personally not been there, but we felt like we couldn't talk about North Carolina without talking about one of their haunted ships as well, since we just did a whole episode on one of South Carolina's.
Yeah. And it's interesting because in our research, we found that only 10 men were lost during battle on the ship. And that may not include like disease and natural causes, but
To only lose 10 men
yeah.
in battles?
And like we said, it was, a part of every major naval offensive in the Pacific Theater. So that is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I think the Yorktown seemed to have a lot more life lost upon it. At least that's kind of from looking at the history of the two ships. But this one is also reportedly haunted. And there's stories of a young blonde man that has been seen in the passageways. And he's been seen peering out of portholes occasionally. One has hitched a ride with an unsuspecting guest. Hatches and doors open or close themselves. Televisions and lights turn off. Just the normal paranormal things that you'd see all seem to happen here also. So it's interesting because, it just goes to show that a lot of times during wartime and in military operations, when you have lives that are lost in war, that tragedy can kind of spill over into the afterlife and still haunt, whether it's a ship or a building or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Without getting too far into like what you believe about the afterlife and stuff like that, I don't know. To me, it seems there's got to be something with like energy.
Yeah, and we've kind of touched on that
We
before.
have. Yeah.
But
Talking about like the 10 men that were lost during battle, it says that 5 of those was a result from a torpedo hit on the port side that created a hole that was 32 feet by 18 feet below the waterline. And so people believe that 1 or 2 of those men are still on the ship, but that's a huge hole.
yeah.
below the waterline, and to not sink, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a wonder it didn't sink. It just goes to show you how resilient those ships were.
Yeah. I mean, they are huge,
Yeah.
but
And then the Titanic hits a little iceberg and it fucking sinks like a bitch.
couldn't turn left fast enough.
Yeah. Not the USS North Carolina, huh?
Yeah. And, people report things like stuff moving by themselves in front of witnesses. So not just like one person witnesses it, like groups of people. And then whatever entities are on the ship don't hesitate to make themselves known by talking or sometimes even yelling.
Yeah, I would imagine at night, especially, that would be creepy. I mean, even being like touring the Yorktown, going back to the Yorktown, I know this episode isn't on there, but even being with a tour group on the Yorktown at night, it's still creepy.
Yeah.
Because you could just imagine being there by yourself at night. Because
Yeah.
it's a large ship, so even when it was full at night, and people do still go aboard the ship, they have security guards and stuff at night. I could imagine how creepy it is at night,
Oh,
especially to
yeah.
hear something like that.
Imagine being a security guard, just like doing your rounds.
Oh,
At one point, you probably get used to it. You're just like, oh, there's the ghost guy. He's going to touch my shoulder.
yeah, there's the kitchen ghost. But yeah, so interesting.
Yeah. And also, people report like cold spots or footsteps or other like eerie experiences. And cold spots is something that you just see. That's like something that is linked to paranormal activity.
Yeah, they say when you're near a ghost,
Yeah,
the
like
temperature will drop. But yeah, so that's all pretty standard, normal paranormal experiences that people have reported. So yeah, it's another cool place to go check out if you're in North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, North Carolina, since it's not technically considered the South
To
according
me,
to
yeah.
Jared's standards.
I mean, it is, but I don't. People are gonna be getting emails.
Hey, yeah, if you disagree, let us know and tell us why. That's the most important thing. Why? What's your reasoning?
Yeah.
But we have a few more stories for South Carolina. So, moving on to South Carolina. The first story we have out of South Carolina is the Pawleys Island Gray Man.
That's right.
So if you've been to Pawleys Island, and we even learned about this on our Myrtle Beach, which is basically like a neighboring place to Pawleys Island.
The general area. But you and I were just in Pawleys Island.
Yeah, we were with Marsh.
Mm-hmm.
But we heard about it on our ghost tour in Myrtle Beach is the thought I was trying to get out. So the Gray Man of Pawleys Island is a legendary ghost said to appear before major hurricanes to warn people to evacuate. According to various legends, the Gray Man is the spirit of a young man who died during a hurricane while trying to reach his fiancée on the island. The legend says that those who heed the warning will actually have their property spared from damage by the storm. So if they, see the Gray Man and then they leave, then all their stuff is like protected by the Gray Man, or so they say.
Right.
The Gray Man is described as a gray figure, often wearing a hat and jacket, who just vanishes into thin air when approached. So there are many variations of the legend, and we heard one on our ghost tour. Most say the Gray Man was first seen in 1822, 3 years before the town government was incorporated. And sightings have reportedly occurred before every major hurricane since, and the last reported sighting was just before Hurricane Florence in 2018, and previously just before Hurricane Hugo hit in 1989.
Right.
So I remember this story from our ghost tour, and because I get like the visualizations from it or whatever, but he said something about how the man was on his way back to his fiance and either got stuck in like a marsh and
Mm-hmm.
couldn't move, or just drowned in the hurricane. But either way, it was like a love story of he was trying to get back to his fiance, and his fiance has been seen, like, after that, just looking for him, and I don't know if they ever found him.
Yeah. Yeah, and anybody that knows anything about the history of hurricanes, especially on the South Carolina coast, is anybody you talk to that's been down here for a long time or is from here, they'll tell you about specifically Hurricane Hugo. Hugo was the bad one, and there's even places down in this area where you go into restaurants and things, and they'll have pictures from the hurricane on the walls. And there's one famous photo that you can find online, and I've seen pictures of it, of like a sailboat in town. Like
Mm,
it blew off the coast into town, and it's like laying in the street.
yeah.
And so Hurricane Hugo was one of the worst hurricanes I think probably ever recorded, at least in the southeast, and it destroyed South Carolina.
Yeah, even into the upstate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but like Charlotte, North Carolina, where, we've frequented a lot, like, there are stories from there too. People that, like, my parents know, and things like that, like, they still talk about Hugo
Yeah.
and like how bad it was and how scary it was.
Yeah, Hugo's definitely infamous.
Yeah.
But it seems like since then there's been other bad hurricanes, but they kind of come and go.
Yeah.
But Hugo's the one that a lot of people really remember.
Yeah. Well, and I do remember when Helene happened, people were comparing it to Hugo, and it's eerie that they both start with an H because they alternate the letters of the naming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember there was chatter about that. Like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah. But it's funny because down here, like when there's a hurricane coming, it's like kind of a party. People have hurricane parties.
Yeah.
They hole up in somewhere and they're like throw a big party and just wait for the lights to go out. And it's kind of festive in a way. It's like an excuse to like, because a lot of times like work shuts down, everything's closed. And so everybody just kind of hangs out at their house with their families and friends.
Clears out the milk and bread from the grocery stores.
Yeah. And they make it a big thing. But yeah, I think Hugo was kind of a different vibe because I think it was pretty bad and a lot of people died.
Yeah.
So,
Well, speaking of the gray man, this kind of leads into the next story from Polly's Island, so we're not going far, of the Pelican Inn.
and another place that we were just at.
Yes, we did go visit the Pelican Inn. We did not step foot on the property. There were signs, no trespassing, so we respected them. We took pictures from the other side. But the Pelican Inn on Polly's Island has a haunted history tied to several ghost stories, and most famously, the gray man that we just mentioned. So some say, which I kind of touched, that he died in quicksand in the marsh, while another story says that he was the original owner of the inn, Plowden C.J. Weston, who died of tuberculosis in 1864. So there's kind of a toss-up speculation between, was he a man who died in quicksand in the marsh, or did he just own this inn and die of tuberculosis? Who knows?
Yeah.
But other legends include the ghost of the inn's owner and his wife, Emily, as well as the spirits of two Boston Terrier dogs.
Wow.
And some of the guests at the inn, they've reported paranormal activity, such as items moving on their own and, drum roll please, cold spots.
Oh, wow.
That was anticlimactic.
Yet again.
But yeah, yet again, another, theme that you'll see with paranormal activity, the cold spots. So if you're staying in a hotel and it gets cold, one, check the AC. It might just be too low, but
Yeah.
it could be a ghost.
And oddly enough, I've been stuck in the marsh, the muddy marsh in this area myself,
Oh.
in Garden City. And I've told this story before, not on the podcast, but I jumped in and thinking it was like solid ground, and I went up to my chest.
Oh my gosh. That's terrifying.
Yeah, with my camera, by the way. And
Oh.
so I had to crawl out of this mud Um, as I was sinking down, I like crawled out. I mean, I didn't almost die or anything, but I was completely covered in mud, and so I went down to the beach just completely, absolutely drenched in like mud and ick, and I jumped into the ocean with all my clothes on. I lost my shoes, by the way, so I
Yeah.
had no shoes on because my shoes were in the mud and there was no way to get them. And so I crawled myself out like a zombie and went down to the beach, and all these people are down like enjoying the beach. And it was late in the year too, so it was cold.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just, with all my clothes on, jumped in the ocean to wash myself off.
Was it hard to climb out? Like
Yeah.
they say, like, if you get in quicksand, which
Well, it's not quicksand per se. But it's the if you've ever been to the coast and you go to like the inlet or
it's like a
whatever,
bog.
yeah, and it's mud, so it's not really sandy. It's mud,
Yeah.
but it's where you go out and you look out. It was like I went off of the pier. There was a pier that goes out over the marsh, and I went to jump down into it stupidly, and yeah, that was one of my first lessons down here in South Carolina and on being on the coast is to not do that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I almost went completely in.
Well, heed that warning, and Jared will make sure your shoes stay safe.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a fun one. I like the story of the gray man.
yeah,
It's like a ghost that's like,
positive.
yeah,
Tries to help. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and it is one of the. I mean, we learned about it on the ghost tour. I had heard that story before, but it's one of the more famous or well-known ghost stories in South Carolina.
yeah.
Um, I've heard people talk about it that aren't even don't even live in South Carolina. So,
Yeah, I wonder if the gray man is one of those ghosts that people kind of like repurpose, in other areas.
hmm
Or might say like, oh, the gray man originated here. I wonder if there's like fights over who had the OG gray man.
the OG Gray Man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's Polly's Island. So, still staying in South Carolina, moving along the coast, we have another place that we've been to, and that is in Hilton Head. So, next we're taking you to Zion Cemetery.
that's right. Yeah, Hilton Head is a place that we've both been so many times, spent a lot of time in, and the cemetery on Hilton Head. There's one cemetery. It's a small island. Um, is a place that I go pretty much. We go pretty much every time we go to Hilton Head, and anytime I ever go to Hilton Head with people that have never been there before or have never been to the cemetery before, I always take them there. We took your mom and dad there. Um, it's a really cool cemetery.
Yeah. We always like to go at night too.
Yeah, yeah. Going at night's really cool. It's a very old cemetery, and it's so old, in fact, that the trees on the cemetery grounds have actually grown up through the tombstones. So
Yeah.
there's tombstones embedded in the oak trees on the grounds of the cemetery.
Just like coming out of the side.
Yeah, it's really a really cool thing to like photograph and see.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a really incredible place, and it's kind of out of place of the rest of Hilton Head because as much as I love Hilton Head, it is very developed now, and there's a lot of modern stuff there, and it's very like kind of highfalutin of an area. But the cemetery is like one of the last remaining really old areas on the island that they've kind of left untouched. And so specifically in the cemetery, there's a mausoleum, which is the mausoleum of William Eddings Bayard, and it's the oldest standing structure on the island, still to this day.
Yeah. And it's cool to visit.
Yeah. So legend has it that William Bayard was a wealthy plantation owner who was inconsolable after losing his young wife in the early 1840s. He would wander the halls of the Hilton Head plantation, yearning for a glimpse of her presence. And that's kind of the story behind his ghost.
Yeah, they say that he was desperate to stay connected to his wife, so he constructed the mausoleum 3 years before his passing in 1849. And a lot of whispers spread, speculating that the tomb was meant to safeguard his precious possessions for the afterlife that he hoped to share with his wife. So because of those rumors during the Civil War, the Union soldiers caught wind of that alleged fortune within the mausoleum, and there were relentless raids and, people just looting, basically, leaving every treasure stolen. And so the spirit of William Baynard, angry and heartbroken, is said to linger not only in the ruins of the Stony Baynard plantation, but also within the empty mausoleum itself that is on Hilton Head Island that we have visited.
Yeah. There's been stories of late at night on like a rainy night. You can still see his horse and carriage leaving the mausoleum or coming back to the mausoleum. That's stories that people have recorded over the years. I've been there many times, like we said, and I've been there many times at night. I've never seen anything like that. I've never actually had any like ghostly experiences there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very beautiful place because it's on the island. It's very,
yeah, you got the Spanish moss everywhere
Yep.
with the old, they're very thin but tall headstones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very beautiful.
Yeah. And we were there not that long ago. One of the times that we went, they were actually doing construction on the mausoleum. They had like tape around it. Like they were, I think, fixing the roof. I think maybe the roof had fallen in. So they do a good job of kind of keeping at least that section of the island like very historic and very old. And like I said, it's a very different from the rest of the island. A lot of the modern like condos and stuff that are there and hotels. The cemetery is one of those places that you can go on the island that really has an old school feel to it, and you can really experience some history there. So it's one of my favorite places to go on Hilton Head. If you go to Hilton Head, I know a lot of people have been there. A lot of people go there. I don't think a lot of people go to the cemetery.
I would have to agree. It's pretty small, and it's kind of just tucked away in this little like corner.
Yeah.
It's very easy to miss.
Mm-hmm.
Although there is a taco truck nearby.
Yeah, and there's no real parking. You have to park
at the eye doctor.
Yeah, there's an eye doctor down the street. You have to park. And remember last time, because it's closed at night, but it's funny because the gate is locked, but you can just walk around it.
Yeah, well, the first time we went, it was locked, but the last time we were able to open it, remember? And just walk right in.
Maybe it wasn't locked the first time. But
maybe we just didn't even try it.
But it's closed, like it's not open at night.
Yeah.
But if you just walk down further, it kind of goes into the woods, the fence, you can just walk around the fence.
Yeah, it just stops.
Yeah. And the scariest thing I've actually ever seen at the Zion Cemetery is not a ghost, but a homeless person just popped out of the woods one time when I was there at night.
Oh.
Because I'm like there, it's kind of creepy. It's a cemetery. It's supposedly haunted. And like I was there and all of a sudden somebody comes out of the woods and I like was like, oh shit. And it was just like there's like one homeless person on Hilton Head. And he was just like carrying like a bag and just like was like, hey, how's it going? And like went into the woods.
Like you scared me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a good place to visit too, because also like I don't know that they have people there, but they do have signs and like placards that talk about, some of the history and stuff like that. So
yeah, and they do still have church services there. There is like
yeah.
They're newer, but they put in pews kind of on the cemetery grounds. And I guess they do have some sort of like service there. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Next stop on this haunted train moving through South Carolina is Maysville or Sumter County to the Salem Black River Church, which I have not been to, but Jared has.
Mm-hmm.
This church was supposedly built around 1846. And it's said that this, some people just have a feeling of fear rush over you when you step onto the grounds. Is that anything that you experienced while you were there?
Yeah, and a lot like we did our first Halloween special episode on Hell's Church. Salem Black River Church is kind of the same thing, not just in the stories that surround it, but also the feel. Like I said in that episode on Hell's Church, I've been to a lot of different haunted places that are, supposedly haunted. I've very rarely actually felt anything in any of those places, but I mentioned in the Hills Church episode that I did, it felt dark. It did. It felt heavy. And I can honestly say that the Salem Black River Church is kind of that same kind of thing. Um, it's one of the few places I've been that I actually did kind of feel like there was a darkness to this place,
Like a presence.
like a presence or just some sort of dark energy. I don't know. As soon as you get out, the church itself is there. The church itself isn't, I mean, it's creepy, but it's whatever, it's an old church. When you get back to the cemetery grounds of the Salem Black River Church, which sits behind the church, the further back you go, the more intense that feeling kind of gets. It's just like a weight, it's heavy.
Yeah.
And one of the times I went twice, and one of the times we actually jumped the fence to get into the cemetery. And it's like as soon as your feet hit the ground on the other side and you're in the cemetery, it's like instantly I felt nauseous.
Oh.
Um, and giant horseflies started flying all over and like attacking us. And so we didn't spend a lot of time in the cemetery. We wanted to get to the back of the cemetery because that's where some of the satanic rituals were said to have taken place. A lot like Hell's Church, it's kind of the same thing where supposedly satanic rituals have happened and stuff. So there was supposedly like graffiti and stuff back there with pentagrams and different things. We wanted to go try to find that stuff, which we did, but we didn't spend a lot of time in the cemetery itself because it made us feel sick. And like I said, there were flies everywhere for whatever reason. It was like almost like Amityville. And
Yeah.
so it's one of those places we didn't want to spend a lot of time in. And so we got out of there pretty quick. Yeah, it's just one of those places that I can't really explain it. I'm not like a super, I believe in paranormal and I believe in ghosts and spirits, but it's not something that I've really experienced a lot with. But this is one of the few places that I did like really feel something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's creepy. I wonder what it was that you felt, because most sources mention the Southern Belle Ghost, but according to the Palmetto State Paranormal, there are actually more spirits that are like on the church grounds.
Mm-hmm.
So they talk about the church having two graveyards, and one story mentions a priest from the 1900s that a plague had overcome his family and killed everybody but him, which is like so sad. So, being the last family member alive during that time, this priest, this is what they say, began to curse God, start satanic seances, and commit satanic mischief, like on the church grounds. And there's an old shack behind the church that apparently used to be his. And some have said that they've seen a solid dark figure standing inside while the lights are on.
Mm-hmm.
That's creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those things where, especially for these places that are reportedly haunted and they're extremely old, it's like as stories get told down through the generations and through time, it's like how much of it is myth and how much of it is like historical reality.
Yeah.
You know, because different stories originate from different sources, and so you never really know, even if a place is haunted. Like there's so many different stories about like different people that have died there or things that have happened or tragedy that it's like hard to kind of tell like what the real story is.
Well, yeah. And also, like, a lot of these paranormal experiences are like, you know, brief, I would say. So it's not like somebody sees this dark figure and the dark figure's waving, like, hey, I'm the priest from the 1900s. Like, you don't know.
Right. Yeah, and the fact that it
That's part of the fun, though,
yeah.
is the speculation.
Right, because it could have been that priest and that may have really happened where his whole family died and everything. That might be like historical fact, but the point is that it is a cemetery, so there's a bunch of people that have died and were buried there. So it could be any number of
Yeah.
ghosts or spirits haunting that place.
Yeah, and that's the question of like some why do some energies stay in places or some people or ghosts or whatever you want to call it, but stay in some places and some don't,
Hmm.
And like where do they stay? Like there's a story that we'll talk about um later about yeah, Andrew Jackson, and people talk about like why would his spirit, pick this place of all places, or like could a spirit choose several places and they just kind of make their rounds like, oh, I'm going to go to my gravesite today. Well, you know what? I'm going to go to my childhood home.
Hmm.
And then, rotate. Who knows? I don't know how it works.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint, like, for something like a cemetery, because if you have a haunted house, let's say, and it's haunted because in a certain years there was a murder, there was a
Yeah.
brutal murder, or somebody died in some tragic way. It's like, okay, well, that's the ghost of this person, most likely, that's haunting this house. Or a hotel, there's specific rooms in a hotel that'll be haunted because somebody that stayed in that room died somehow. So it's like kind of easy to pinpoint, but with situations like this where it's like a whole cemetery that has a long history, it's like it could be anybody.
Yeah.
It could be any spirit haunting it. So it's kind of hard to like really pinpoint like what the actual story is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also, right on brand for talking about paranormal, people also say that it's not uncommon for cold spots to show up in the cemetery and for temperatures to drop in different spots. Again, they say more so in the back of the cemetery, which you mentioned as like, what they say is like the most haunted, like the older cemetery or whatever.
The older section, yeah.
Yeah. And similar, I remember reading a story about Hell's Church where somebody mentioned, because I mean, you think cold spots outside, like, okay, but this one guy specifically mentioned, and again, this is a separate church, so we did a separate episode on, but just relating it because it's still a church and it's outdoors. They were talking about cold spots in July, so it's like indisputably like no way
Yeah.
in the South in July is there going to be a cold spot.
Right. It's noticeable.
Yes. Yeah. And then so there's also reports of cell phones and cameras that just lose battery life, along with seeing orbs, lights, and just that overwhelming feeling that someone's watching you.
Mm-hmm.
And so there seems to be like one active spirit that's been seen, and it seems to be the lonely spirit of a little boy that people mention that he appears to be between the ages of 6 to 8 and is often seen near the front of the graveyard, near the front gate, and was described as just being very sad and depressed. And some people actually say that they've heard like a faint crying sound coming from the gate. And by the sounds, you can just tell that this like spirit was in a lot of pain and like grieving.
Right.
But again, there's no real way to trace back like who could this little boy be, because I'm sure there's
Many, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but and like I said, when I was there, I didn't experience anything like that. I didn't see anything per se or
I
hear
think
anything necessarily. But just like with Hell's Church, it's like it's just the vibe you get from being there.
yeah.
Um, it's just a creepy place,
Yeah.
and I don't feel that way about a lot of places.
In our defense too, like I don't know how much time you spent here, but we didn't spend a whole lot of time at House Church. We were there for maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah,
So it's like, I mean, not that I want to spend more time, you know what I mean, to like experience something, but I mean, I feel like that's a pretty short amount of time, right?
right. But
But just
also
the vibe alone was enough.
a reason for that is also because of how it made us feel, and
Yes.
and same thing with Salem Black River. It's not the kind of place that you want to spend a lot of time in. Whereas, like for example, we just talked about the mausoleum um, in Hilton Head in the cemetery. It's I could spend all day there. I could spend all night there. It's like
Yeah.
it's haunted and everything, and it's creepy because it's an old cemetery, but it
So
doesn't give me that
peaceful.
feeling.
Yeah.
There's only a few places that have ever really given me that like dreadful feeling, and one is Hell's Church, and the other one is this church.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's just church. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Ooh, gets hot in there. I'm burning up.
Oh, well, speaking of hell, the next place that we're going to is called Hell's Gate, and there's many places around the world that kind of claim this
Moniker.
name. Yeah. But this one specifically is in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Disclaimer though, this is one that we haven't gone to yet.
Mm-hmm.
We just had a busy holiday season. We really wanted to try to make it to this Hell's Gate in Spartanburg, South Carolina, before we recorded this episode. Couldn't make it happen, but still wanted to kind of share some of the information. So the actual name is Oakwood Cemetery.
Yeah, that's kind of like Hell's Church, where it's called Hell's Church. It's known as Hell's Church to anybody that's like going there to be scared, but it's not actually called Hell's Church. This place isn't actually called Hell's Gate. That's not the actual name. It's Oakwood Cemetery, which sounds much nicer.
Yeah, it does. So the nickname comes from the cemetery's history as a former potter's field, which is, I had to look it up, a place for the burial of like the unknown, unclaimed, or just like poverty-stricken people. So similar to the St. Louis Cemetery in New Orleans.
Yeah, and we talked about the St. Louis Cemetery in our New Orleans episode that we did for just the regular travel
episode 4
of Temporary Locals. Because we went to the St. Louis Cemetery mostly to see Marie Laveau, her tomb. But they kind of explained that the St. Louis Cemetery is kind of the same way in that people that didn't have the money for a proper burial, or people that were like street people or homeless, they were kind of buried here. Like the community kind of comes together and buries those people here in mausoleums. And they still do it to this day.
Yeah.
She was telling us that like there was a busker who was just kind of a street person who had no family and had died pretty recently, and they buried him.
Yeah, I do remember
in the St.
that.
Louis Cemetery. So
it's like a heartfelt story because it's like, you know, this person didn't have, obviously, I mean, family who, you know, they were in touch with or anything like that. And so like the way she phrased it was like New Orleans, you know, claimed this person like, hey, you're one of us, we're gonna bury you in this cemetery, which is that cemetery. There's only a couple ways that you can get buried there, and it's if you're Catholic, like you have family there, or you're an, you know, unclaimed person.
Yeah, it is kind of a dichotomy though, because you do have the poor and disenfranchised people that will be buried in places like the St. Louis Cemetery, but also Nicolas Cage's tomb is there.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess if you have enough money, you can be buried there, but also if you're poor and have no money, they'll bury you there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. But we say that to say that's also apparently how the Oakwood Cemetery is. It's a lot of like, you know, unclaimed, unknown, poverty-stricken people that are buried there. And so because of that, it's considered very haunted.
Yeah, and that goes back to just what we were talking about of like, it's hard to pinpoint a lot of this, you know, activity to like who might be the source or what might be the source because of these, you know, unknown people. So like you don't even know who all is there, you know, to locate the source for it. But the back of the cemetery is the older section that was chartered in the 1800s, and similar to the Salem Black River Church, people report cell phones dying, feeling ill, or overcome with a sense of dread, just like on the way to that old part of the cemetery in the back. And that section contains graves of former prisoners, wards of the state, like we said, people with no family, or people who were just too poor for a proper burial. In 1914, the city dug up more than 100 graves in another part of town and moved them to the Oakwood Cemetery to make way for some sort of development. That's kind of rude.
Yeah.
Like, I was resting, bro.
Well,
You're
and
gonna dig me up and move me to another
yeah,
place.
that's kind of a good indication of why it might be so haunted, is because the graves were disturbed and brought there, and so not a good idea.
Yeah. In 2012, a caretaker was making rounds and discovered that a grave had been broken into and the casket was pried open. And the head of that body was removed in what was seemingly a satanic ritual. That is creepy.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, it doesn't say, but I wonder if the timing of, like, when that person was buried to when the grave was broken into. Because, like, I don't know. I feel like that's a whole level of different level of grave robbing. Like,
That's some Ed Gein shit right there.
yeah.
What year did he die? This was 2012. Yeah. That's just what, when we were kind of researching this, it said it was seemingly a satanic ritual. I don't know how removing the head from a body in a grave is what's satanic about that, but that's just what it said. So I don't know if there was like symbology found at the site or maybe some like artifacts from the ritual, but
Yeah. Or it could just be people speculating, you know, you never.
right. I don't know
Never
what
know.
other reason though somebody would have to remove the head from a grave.
Yeah. Well, and I also have to call in question, you know, how often does the caretaker make rounds? You know, because, and like, do they always take the same route? I would assume so. I don't know all the details, but I just wonder how much time, you know, happened. Was it like you did your last round of the night and then you came back the next morning? So, like, how much time elapsed and was available? Obviously, enough time for somebody to dig it up, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right. Unless they thought that maybe there was something valuable in there. But again, that doesn't answer the question of why they removed the head. So maybe that's why it's kind of chalked up to being a satanic ritual of some sort.
yeah, or some weirdo just wanted a skull.
Possibly. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Make a bowl out of it.
Ew, Ed Gein.
Ed Gein.
Get out of here.
Charlie Hunnam. We were watching that and I was like, does Ed Gein, did he have abs? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I know.
So we're going to be heading out of South Carolina now and moving further down into the deep south to the peach state of Georgia.
Georgia.
And I want to mention that we are not going to be talking about Savannah, even though it is arguably, like we said, the most haunted city in the United States. Because if you listen to our other Halloween specials, we did an entire episode on Savannah. So even though it is extremely haunted, we're going to talk about other haunted places in Georgia.
Yeah, these are just bits and pieces. Savannah, she got her own episode.
Yeah.
So you can go check that one out. That's the last episode, so it would have been episode 17.
That's right. Haunted Savannah.
So the first location that we're going to talk about is a place that I really want to go back to in Augusta. It's well, not this specific place, but the Finney Swamp. So in there, we just stumbled upon is a Finney family graveyard. So we just happened to remember that when we were thinking of and brainstorming places that we can talk about on this episode, and we were like, oh yeah, there's that one cemetery that we went to and just stumbled upon, and it's like overgrown. It's like, it's creepy.
It is creepy because there's no real signage. I mean, you're hiking through the woods outside the swamp and you just come upon gravestones in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fence around them, but
a very old,
yeah,
rundown fence. But yeah, it's just like a graveyard in the middle of the woods.
And it's small. It's like the size of our living room.
Yeah.
But so looking up information about this cemetery, we found out that Native Americans first occupied this area, leaving behind artifacts and evidence of the tribes that once called this swamp home. In particular, Ferdinand Victor Francois Finney an
Ooh.
Italian entrepreneur who settled in the area in 1778, established this as a family graveyard. His own remains were originally buried there in 1818, but were later moved to a cemetery in Augusta. And several of his children and son-in-law are still buried in the graveyard. The graveyard entrance is off of Stephen-Salem Road, and there's a path leading to it. But that's kind of rude. Like, I wonder why they moved him, but not his children or son-in-law, like the rest of his family. That's interesting.
That is interesting. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's something we'd have to look into, but it's Finnissy Swamp is a really cool place to go and hike.
Yeah.
Aside from the haunted aspect of the graveyard that's there, we talk about Finnissy all the time, and they have gators there, very large gators, in fact, that you and I have photographed and kind of interacted with. But yeah, it's just a really awesome place, and you never really realize like the haunted history behind a place until you start looking into it. Because I had been to that cemetery before, just kind of stumbled upon it, like I said. I never really thought much about it, but turns out there is a good deal of history there once you look.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's mentions of, the Native Americans, around that area too. I couldn't find like a specific story of hauntings, but this one kind of made our list because it's just just a very small, very niche graveyard just in the middle of the woods. But that swamp itself is a super cool place to go. I've always enjoyed, the few times that we've gone there. I once went there by myself while you were working, and so just had time throughout the day because I was off work, and walking through the swamp just by myself, and then starting to get kind of like the reality hits me, and I'm like, oh, this is fun and all, but like I'm by myself and there's like gators everywhere.
Yeah.
So I remember being like having a good time, like spotting gators. I remember 7 in one day. And I mean, because this swamp is just like different ponds separated by big grassy paths, and so they're all kind of connected, and you can take multiple paths and loops around and see something different. You'll see gators kind of swimming in the ponds or just kind of like hanging out sunbathing in the paths. But I do remember walking by there and being like, I can't tell on this like straight away if that is just grass or if there's a gator on this path, but I don't want to be on this path by myself with the gator.
Yeah, Finnissy is one of the few reasons to even go to Augusta. And I know saying that anybody that's from Augusta, they take a lot of pride in Augusta. But other people that aren't from there call it Disgusta.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean there's nothing really there, but this is a cool place to go. You and I have had a lot of fun in Augusta. It's the home of James Brown. Just a little history for everybody else. They have a giant statue of James Brown downtown that you can go and visit. And you and I had a Alfa Romeo rental that we drove around in Augusta.
Oh, that was fun.
And they also have a really nice river walk. I will say Augusta has a really nice river walk. And the only other thing that Augusta, I guess, is known for is they host the Masters every year. So that's where the Masters are, in Augusta. So if you're trying to go to Augusta during the Masters, you won't be able to find a hotel, and you'll just see golfers everywhere.
But you can go visit Finnissy.
Yep, you can go. And the gators in Finnissy are nice size too, and that one gator that we saw that was laying across the trail, and we decided to go around the opposite way.
Around the outside.
That's probably one of the biggest gators I've ever seen in person.
Yeah.
Even including the gators we saw in the Everglades.
It was the size of that one that we saw on the path that took up the whole path.
In the Everglades?
It was like in the Everglades.
Yeah.
And this path, you guys, is like a car could drive down it, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically like a road, but it was just like in the woods. But yeah, the gators in Finnissy are pretty big.
Yeah. And if you're interested in seeing what I'm talking about, I have pictures of that gator on social media. I'll share some photos of it. Also, some of my favorite photos of gators I've ever taken.
Yeah.
I've taken some really
He was so
cool
photogenic.
photos. Huh?
He was so photogenic.
Yeah, he was. But yeah, he was big. He was a big boy.
Yeah.
So
All right. Still staying in Georgia. A little bit more well known and maybe even infamous than Finney. Up next is, and I hope I say this right. I feel like I'm not going to say it right. Lake Lanier?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
Lake Lanier. Yeah, this is another place that I've been, and it's pretty well known and famous. In fact, there's actually a movie. There's documentaries about it, but there's an actual movie called Lanier that I think you can get on. It might be on Amazon Prime. I forget where it's streamable, but so Lake Lanier is a very famous lake, and yeah,
Yeah, so since its creation in the mid 1950s, there have been nearly 700 Lake Lanier deaths, many of which are strange, unexplained, and unsolved. About 200 of those deaths have occurred since 1994, and at least 27 of those people have never been found, so hence the nickname Haunted Lake Lanier. But still, the lake attracts somewhere between 8 and 10 million visitors annually, depending on your source, and generates about $5 million a year in revenue, according to the Gainesville Hall County Chamber of Commerce, who say it's the most popular Army Corps lake in America.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I think a lot of the deaths in Lake Lanier are due to the fact that it has kind of a party atmosphere, like a lot of lakes. And so you have people that are intoxicated, people drinking, people partying, and then getting on boats. And you see that even around here, even Lake Murray. There's typically every year at least somebody gets killed from a boating accident of some kind. And so I think some of it is because of that, but the sheer number of people that have drowned, died, or even gone missing in this lake is astronomical in comparison to other lakes.
Yeah.
And so I've swam in this lake. And the stories that you hear about Lake Lanier is people just mysteriously drown. Nobody knows why. It's almost like something pulls people under this lake. And this is a man-made lake. I think it's important to kind of say that up front. And what I found just in my like knowledge and research of haunted lakes and different lakes is it seems to me like the man-made lakes are almost always haunted, more so than a natural lake, because man-made lakes, in order to create the lake, most times they're flooding a town, a cemetery, Native American burial grounds. It's always like they're to create the lake, they're disturbing the land, and a lot of times there's full-on towns under the lakes.
Yeah.
And so usually when you hear of a haunted lake, it's like interesting to check and see, because 9 times out of 10 that's a man-made lake.
Yeah. That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Like, I know the Great Lakes, which totally different conversation, but like I don't know that there's any like hauntings reported, but they do say like some of the Great Lakes are you know, they have ships that have sunk and stuff, and like there's underground quote unquote like cemeteries just because of the sheer temperature, but obviously those aren't man-made. But yeah, it's just an interesting thought that like, oh, we did this, we disturbed this ground, and now it's
Right.
the lake is haunted, and the lake is, you know,
Yeah.
taking people. Yeah, so in speaking of like man-made, in 1946, Congress approved the River and Harbors Act, which aimed to bolster waterways across the country. So I wonder how many like man-made lakes are like, you know, around this time because of this push for, you know, waterways. Like, oh, let's, you know, make some, because there's a lot of man-made lakes, you know, throughout the country.
Yeah, and the town that they flooded to create Lake Lanier was called Oscarville.
No.
Little tidbit.
Yeah. So among some of the approved projects for that River and Harbors Act was a $45 million for the yet to be named Lake Lanier, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers built Lake Sidney Lanier in conjunction with the Buford Dam. So the growing city of Atlanta needed a water source and hydroelectric power, and they wanted to help save communities from constant flooding from the Chattahoochee River.
Way down yonder.
Yeah. So the lake was named after Sidney Lanier, a writer, poet, musician, and Confederate Army veteran. And this lake sits about 40 miles northeast of Atlanta between the Georgia towns of Cumming, Gainesville, and Buford.
Yeah. And like I said, I've swam there. We went out there one time while I was in the Atlanta area and heard the stories and everything, but wanted to check it out. And yeah, I mean, I didn't experience anything creepy, but just swimming in the lake, it was nice. There was a rope swing out there, and we didn't swim too far out or anything, but yeah, it was a cool experience to be able to say I swam in Lake Lanier and survived.
Yeah. It's crazy that, like, so many documented, like, deaths at this lake, and it's still such a popular place. Like, I wonder, is that related? Is it because it's so popular? Like, is it more popular than, like, I don't know?
I don't think so. I think like I was talking about Lake Murray here. I'm sure if you looked up the annual amount of people that go to Lake Murray is also very high. A lot of people go to Lake Murray during the summer and stuff. You might have one death a year from a boating accident, probably something like that. Um, Lake Lanier, I mean, just the sheer numbers, like I said, are just so far disproportionate from other lakes that I think that's why it kind of has that aura around it of being haunted.
Yeah. And I mean, with so many lives being claimed, it's like, I does that just add? Is it like a snowball of
Yeah,
energy or whatever?
it's like Camp Crystal Lake,
Yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting.
right?
All right, Georgia, it's been fun, but it's time to move on. We are going to head to Tennessee, and we have a last minute guest featured on to take us to the Bell Witch Cave in Adams, Tennessee. This is located about 40 minutes from Nashville. And before we get into like the details, just to kind of give a warm welcome to Brittney Moore, our guest on the podcast. Brittney is a Tennessee local who lives nearby the Bell Witch Cave and has frequented this cave multiple times. So welcome onto the podcast, Brittney. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, the Bell Witch Cave is definitely a really unique place to go, especially if you're big into like the spooky season time of year. We actually did this fall festival that the Bell Witch Cave hosts every year. What we do is we set up a group of vendors, and we see crowds of people come from all over the place just to see the Bell Cave. The tour itself of the cave is so creepy in itself. I've never done it at night. I've only been brave enough to do it during the day before it gets dark.
Yeah.
But when we worked the cave, we were doing mediumship work. So we were already kind of playing with spirit enough as it is.
Yeah.
And then antagonizing it a little.
Yeah. So you've been to that location multiple times. I think when we talked earlier, you mentioned that you'd gone like every weekend in October for certain events over like a few years, the course of a few years.
Yeah. Yeah, and they have like a spring festival where they release butterflies. So like not everything is spooky about the Bell Cave. They are definitely all around the board, really friendly people. The family that lives there supports their community heavily. So even though it's known for its dark history, it still puts a lot of really good things back into the community.
Oh, yeah. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
The
So
farm itself is huge. It takes up a big chunk of Robeson County.
So the cave and I guess cabin, because that was what I was asking you earlier, was like, oh, is it actually a cave? There is a cave, but there's a lot of people mention a cabin. So is that what you tour, is the cabin?
You can tour both. You can tour the cabin first because it's the closest to the parking lot, and it in itself is just really eerie because it's the original cabin that's just been updated and to keep everybody safe, because obviously we're not living in 1863 anymore, and
Yeah,
we have a
we have
lot of
different codes.
yeah, so they've updated it, but it is still the original concept, even down to the original wood floors and everything. So you can tour the cabin, and then right around the bend from the cabin, you can venture on down into the ravine, and there's actually like this cliff with a small waterfall, and underneath that waterfall is the Bell Witch Cave. And it goes back, I think I read 20 miles it goes back. So it's a rather large cave.
Wow,
Um,
that would be a hike.
there are several entrances.
Do people go, like, have people, I'm sure at some point have explored all the way back there?
They do. The Bell Witch Cave does offer like deep cave diving experiences, but they do require like actual certifications to be able to do those parts of the cave. But um, they open it, I think, a mile is as far as you can go, which is pretty far, like to
Yeah.
be underground. But
Okay.
it's dark, so
Yeah.
there's no like electricity down there.
Right. So it's an underwater cave then.
I think parts of it are.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, see, that changes it. I've listened to and read so many different stories of like, underwater caving mishaps, cave diving mishaps, and like, not for me.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Cave diving's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of like closed spaces either. I like to be able to see the sky.
Yeah. Or like, yeah, know the air is nearby. I mean, yeah. You've scuba dived.
And cave dived, yeah. It's cave diving is like one of the most dangerous things you can do.
Yeah. So many things can go wrong. So, the Bell Witch Cave, there's like an official story and like an unofficial story, I guess, of like the haunting.
There's local folklore, and then there's what's been released to the public. Yeah, there's two sides to every story. And so I've heard the official story being that it wasn't an actual person, it was a shape-shifting entity, and that may be the case. But in reality, the rumor that happened to be around town was John Bell was having an affair.
And John Bell,
John Bell was the owner of the farm back in 1860 something.
Okay. So the rumor was he was having an affair.
And he ended the affair and had the woman tried as insane, and she was murdered because of it. And they say that's who the Bell Witch is. Some say that she took possession of her image to taunt John Bell. But some of us think it's actually her.
Oh, that's interesting. So is this the folklore?
Her name was Katie. This is the local folklore, yes. But you can find information about it online as well. So I think that there's been a lot of people that have looked into this.
Yeah. The official bellwitchcave.com we were reading earlier said that the Bell Witch is claimed to be the spirit of Kate Batts.
That's it, yeah.
Okay. And so on the official website, they say a slightly different story, that they kind of mentioned that Kate Batts is an otherwise unfriendly neighbor of John Bell who believed that she was cheated by him in a land purchase. So that seems like a way different story than...
It does. It does. And, there might be a lot of truth behind that as well. Because, like I said, the Bell Farm is a massive piece of property in Robertson County. And so all of those older families, they're all still there. It's a very deep-rooted community.
Is it pretty, like, rural? I mean, obviously it's a farm,
Yeah.
but...
No, yeah. It's Middle Tennessee, and if you know anything about Middle Tennessee, we're actually on the Trail of Tears. So his farm is nothing but Indian mounds.
Hmm.
So you can't really build on them.
Yeah.
You can't really build on them because they are considered archaeological, like
Sites.
relic.
Right.
Yeah.
They can't break ground there. So that's why that farmland is so protected. And I want to say that the Bell Witch Cave now is it's like a nationally recognized historical park. But so speaking of the Trail of Tears, before the Bell family owned that land, it belonged to the Indians. And so when the Bell family took over this property, inside the cave was a tomb. And in the tomb was a child, and the child was the daughter of the Indian chief of a local Indian tribe. And when the Bell family came in, they desecrated her body and they removed her from there, and they sold the rest of her body to grave robbers.
Ooh.
Because back then it was really common to loot graves for valuables and things.
Yeah.
And they lost a tooth out of the skull in the floorboards of the cabin. And that's where a lot of that superstitious folklore started with the cabin. Was the Bell Witch. But that was actually John Bell and his brother. So that was back when they were boys growing up. They were the ones that desecrated.
Oh.
And then John Bell grew up and had children, and he was a terrible father because another rumor was that he was doing some pretty terrible things to his daughter, and that the Bell Witch wanted to seek justice, and she poisoned him. And to this day, that's the most valid story to date because it can be traced back legally, because it's the first case of Tennessee ever charging anyone. Or no, it wasn't a charge. It was the first case of supernatural death to be ruled supernatural in the state of Tennessee.
Oh, wow.
Was the death of John Bell. So that is the more
mainstream.
Stuck. That's the one that's stuck, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
we'll never know the truth of what's happened at the Bell Cave. But working with a medium and having some kind of empath capabilities myself, I can tell you that place is very alive.
Yeah. What does it feel like when you step on the grounds there? Because we were talking earlier in our episode about certain places that we've been, and sometimes you can step into a place and it feels heavy or dark, or something's on your chest. What's it feel like there?
I'm really shaking. Okay, so when we first showed up to do some promotional videos, it was before the event. It was during the day. It was noon. And we caught an EVP on camera. We hadn't been there 5 minutes. Let's start by saying, as soon as, I'm not naming anyone, but as soon as this person got out of the car and stepped foot on soil, the protection stone, the tiger's eye that she was wearing around her neck, broke and hit the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. And then we approached the cabin and we were making some really great shots. And I use this piece of equipment called a gimbal. Okay. And the way it works is it will follow the motion of the recording. And it started going really weird and like off into la la land and like looking away from what I was shooting. And in that moment, we captured, it sounded like a growl. So it was really hard for us to debunk during the day because we're obviously not getting under our cabin and looking for animals. But it was caught, it was so loud it was caught on camera. And it just chills the back of your neck. And honestly, we really considered not working the event that year.
Wow.
We really did. The vibes were just really off. It was more of a, we really need to make some money, so we got to do this kind of thing.
Yeah. Wow.
And in my experience, there's a strict rule when you show up, there are signs posted. The woman that sells you tickets tells you, under no circumstances do you take anything from the property and leave with it because you'll be cursed. The Bell Witch will come for you. And well, I did. I did. I didn't even think that what I was taking was that I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I took a seed, a black walnut seed, because it smelled so good. I just wanted to smell it. And my truck started glitching out on the way home. We were 5 minutes from my house, so about 20 minutes from the cave. And
It had never done that before?
And it had never done that before. It was a new truck. I had just got it. And it was, the power was just cutting in and out. And the girl I was with said, "Did you take something from the cave?" And I admitted to her that I had. And she like cleansed the car and threw it out the window. And of all the places for it to land, it landed in one of, I have a neighbor who has a family cemetery in their front yard. It landed in the corner of their cemetery.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like we should do a whole thing on your neighbor's family cemetery.
I think it would be really cool. I think it would be really cool because there's like probably 20 stones in there. It's not terribly small.
Yeah, wow. So now a seed that you stole from the Bell Witch Cave property is now growing in your neighbor's yard?
Yeah.
In their cemetery?
Yeah, and they just had a tree go down and take out half the fence in the cemetery, and it didn't touch the bush that's growing.
Oh, well.
It's spooky. It is spooky. Yeah.
So,
I begged for forgiveness. I brought some fruit from my personal persimmon tree in my backyard, and I left another personal sacrifice at the mouth of the cave, which is what they recommend you do, is just basically beg for forgiveness from the Bell Witch. And I did that. And after I did that, I actually found myself walking into just an amazing amount of luck.
Wow. Sounds like we need to take a trip.
Yeah.
You would love it. It's beautiful. If you didn't know the dark history behind the Bell Witch Cave, which is just called the Bell Cave.
Yeah.
I think everybody just adds the witch for dramatic effect. But it's such a beautiful piece of nature. Middle Tennessee is probably one of the prettiest places I've ever been.
I bet it's beautiful right now that we're like in fall, whether the leaves change color.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And with it raining, the creeks are flowing and it's real pretty.
Yeah. So we talked about the like speculative story, what's the like official record? Like what do they say coming from, the Bell Witch Cave?
I think the official record was the poisoning of him by the Bell Witch,
Which was
which
they're claiming is a
which
like a person.
they're saying is Kate,
Okay.
but Kate was possessed by the Bell Witch. But Kate to me sounds like just a really pissed off ex.
Yeah. And that's the thing about
So,
these stories is there's so much speculation,
well,
Yeah.
I think it's just very easy for them to place the blame on her because she was the only one brave enough to come forward and say what a monster John Bell was.
Yeah.
Because whatever way you paint it, John Bell was no hero.
Well, and if the Bell family exhumed the grave of, a child that was a Native American child, and they grave robbed that site, then that to me seems like that's where the haunting would come from.
Well, and that's just the information that we know because those are the big pieces. Who's to say that they haven't found 10,000 other grave sites on that property and done whatever to it? There's no telling over the course of history what's happened on that property. I do know that they run a haunted trail on the property, which some people find distasteful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But kids are just trying to have fun, and people are just trying to make money and keep the farm alive these days.
Yeah. When we were talking earlier, you mentioned that Ghost Adventures had come to the Bell Witch Cave.
Zach Baggins and his crew were the only crew of paranormal investigators ever to be allowed to record any investigations in the Bell Cave, even to this day.
Yeah.
And I watched the episode. It was very good. Kind of cool to see Zach Baggins walking around in places where you've been walking around.
Yeah.
But I captured some good evidence, but I think we got him beat. I think we captured better evidence than the Ghost Adventures crew for sure. There's another local paranormal team here in Middle Tennessee, and I don't want to butcher their name because I don't remember it. But they come and investigate because they're personal friends with the Bell family, and they've been doing it for years. And I actually was fortunate enough to witness one of these investigations where I watched them communicate directly with spirit using fire.
Oh, wow.
And it scared me to tears. It scared me to tears.
Mm-hmm. It's very shamanic, maybe demonic.
Yeah.
But another interesting thing that we learned when kind of researching the Bell Cave a bit was that former President Andrew Jackson was actually fascinated with it, which I think is kind of interesting with the history, how that kind of ties in, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of places here around Tennessee that honor Andrew Jackson. They have a memorial for him in Robinson County. It was vandalized a bunch of times, so they turned it into a plaque. So nothing fancy. But I don't understand the history behind it, just because I do know his involvement in the Trail of Tears and how much that land was affected directly by Andrew Jackson. So I'm wondering if maybe his fascination had something to do with guilt or the occult, because I do know that Andrew Jackson did have a fascination with the occult lifestyle, like mediums and witch doctors and voodoo priestesses. And being from Louisiana, he had a lot of involvement in the voodoo trade. So I find that fascinating in correlation to if you look into Andrew Jackson, the type of individual he actually was, because he's not just the guy on the $20 bill. He's a man with a pretty morbid history behind him.
Yeah.
Some dark shadows.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory that like he was interested in it because he's like, hey, I just want to make sure, like, am I good? Am I good?
Do I have some bad Indian karma coming? Probably. Maybe an immense amount of guilt for driving hundreds of thousands of Indians into their death. Are we allowed to say Indians? Should we say Native Americans?
I mean,
I do.
Yeah.
That's my apologies.
We're canceled.
Oh my God.
It was your first episode.
Yeah. Well, I have the autism.
There you go.
Oh, now we're canceled again. You can't say that either.
Yeah, I can. I have it. We can say it about ourselves.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, in that case, I'm 1/4 Cherokee, so I can say Indian.
No,
See?
wow.
Yeah, so I can say Indian too.
Wait, I can only say 1/4 of the word, so I'm an
but man.
Well, this is going off the rails.
Yeah.
Well, listen, maybe we're all being possessed by the spirit of John Bell, living here in Middle Tennessee. My property personally, I'm 30 miles from the Bell Cave, but my property personally, I know has paranormal activity. I see it. It's more than just shadows out of the corner of your eye. It's more than just a shriek in the night. It's so real. You can feel things looking at you. And if you don't act like it bothers you, you can kind of cope with it. But if you sit there and think about it for too long, you're running for the hills.
Yeah, I've been actually listening and, watching a few videos lately, and maybe it's just kind of in the air, but like things on like Tales of Appalachia and like seeing videos online where people are sharing, like if you see something or you'll be alone in your house and you'll hear somebody calling your name, and it's like, don't approach them, don't ask them who they are, just ignore it. Yeah. Which is terrifying.
Yeah, skinwalker territory for sure, for sure. And I was reading in the thing that you sent me before the show, I was reading in there that you also covered Helen's Bridge. And I was talking with my husband on our way to dinner, and I said, it's kind of funny she's got me on here talking about the Bell Cave, because one of my most terrifying paranormal experiences to the day has been, he's got goosebumps right now, was when we went to Helen's Bridge.
Oh, no way.
Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay, so we did already talk about it, and we have, like, I specifically said we didn't go there. So most places we have gone, but this specific place, well, this specific place, we started reading about it, and what we read was like, the lore of like how the spirit got there, but basically
so sad.
It is really sad. But like, I got stuck on people not being able to restart their cars. So I was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that.
It is so true. It is so true.
Is that what happened?
If Paul's car was not a stick shift and we couldn't have popped that clutch on that incline from that hill, we could not start his car back up. And there was a hand on the back of his car. It's going to make me throw up. It was insane. It was how do I put this? It was us and another couple, a really good friend of ours. And they told us over and over, no, we don't want to do this. We don't want to do this. No, please don't make us go. And we said, okay, we'll go do something else. But we lied.
Oh, no.
We went to the bridge anyway.
Oh, dude, I would have been so mad. We wouldn't be friends.
We were so pissed. And then shit got scary. And then, so if you know anything about Asheville territory and specifically Tunnel Road, where Helen's Bridge is, it is insanely difficult to maneuver.
Like windy
On a good
roads.
day. Yeah, without it even being a haunted bridge and your car having issues, like it's a really like difficult to maneuver road anyway. And so when we made the decision, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't, maybe we should turn around, maybe we should like we couldn't because the road was too tight to make any type of no turning back.
Yeah. Like you have to just keep going. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we really should have just reversed it and gone right back down that mountain and just never, ever, ever experienced that. That was some of the, because you heard the on the back windshield, like the thump of like
A hand.
and yeah, yeah, it was. Oh, the hair on my arm standing up too, and I'm shaking. It was such a bad day. We went bowling after that, though. It was a good time later. But
Wow.
you know, teenagers have been doing that for a long time, and I think I saw it on Ghost Adventures.
Going to Helen's Bridge. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people report the same thing of like
Yeah.
you go and the legend says like she'll come if you call her name. So is that what you guys did or you just went there and
No, we just went there and we weren't even serious about it. We're like, all right, we're here. Let's turn around and leave. Fuck this. We're out. Right. Like, we're like, all right, we seen it. Bye. You know,
yeah.
we were not trying to stay. And the car shut off. And we all thought Paul was fucking with us. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I thought they were messing with us. And he was like panicking and to the point where he was like, no, hell no, hell no. And so like he put it in neutral and they pushed him and Brent pushed and we jump in and rode right down the mountain. Done.
Wow.
Out. Skedaddled.
Yeah.
So fast.
And it was at
Did
night.
not it was like that time of night, the golden
Like
hour,
dusk.
right?
Yeah.
So like
yeah.
Like we could still see the leaves in the trees and the colors, but it was starting to go blue and gray
Yeah.
and that doesn't help with your state of mind either when you're already scared and then it's getting dark and then that anxiety
And then your car
really
won't start.
set it. Yeah. And the only one that can drive a stick shift is the one guy.
Yeah. Wouldn't
So
it be
it's not like-
something if like you didn't know, but like, you know, a few minutes before you guys got there, there was a bunch of kids or whatever, and they get out and they start calling her. I mean, didn't happen, nothing happened, so they left, and then you guys showed up.
Collateral damage.
You know, a friend of mine who lives up in Asheville, she told me a story of a friend of hers that went up there and antagonized the spirit, but they were going after the spirit of the little girl.
Oh.
And they were like trying to communicate with like the spirit of the baby that died, right? And when they were out there, they were being like harassed by something that was like leaving marks.
Wow.
And I want to say it was like a blister, which would make a lot of sense because the house burnt down and Helen, you know, killed herself because her baby pushed in the fire. So that's just to me that's crazy because that's a lot of energy to create actual injury. Yes. Yeah. It's more than just the hair standing up on the back or you feeling a cold brush of air against your cheek. That's a physical injury.
Yeah. Which is a whole other level of scary. Like we talked, you know, about like, you know, typical kind of experiences when you're encountering paranormal activity and like cold spots is one of them. Like It's one thing to feel a cold spot, but to actually feel something touch you or even hurt you, I'm out. I'm absolutely out.
I've had so many of those experiences. I'm so sensitive to paranormal activity. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think
Well, that was
there,
cool.
yeah, a lot of paranormal activity. It's a fun, spooky episode, right? Is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we were just expecting you to have to come on and talk about Tennessee, but we got a little bonus content from some additional Helen's Bridge experiences. So that was cool. I didn't know that you guys had been there. I feel like maybe I did and I put it out of my mind because I didn't want to think about it.
Oh, well, girl, we've been all over.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll talk again soon.
I love it.
I'm
Thanks for
just
having me.
Alrighty. So leaving Tennessee and moving on down into Florida. I know we mentioned in the beginning that culturally, Florida is not considered the deep south, as Jared mentioned. However, I visited a haunted doll in Key West. So I said we have to do a story about Florida. And then as we started talking about it, we started thinking about, oh, there's some more haunted stuff to bring up. So the first stop in Florida, we are going way down south to Key West to talk about Robert the Doll. And this is a famous doll. I didn't know at the time, and I visited it when I was young. But Robert the Doll is a doll of a boy in a sailor suit. It said that he wasn't even intended to be a toy, but probably built for like a window display of clowns or jesters. He originally belonged to an eccentric artist named Robert Eugene Otto. And the doll was said to have been manufactured in Germany and purchased in 1904 by Robert's father and gifted to Robert for his birthday. According to the legend, the doll has supernatural abilities that allow it to move, change its facial expressions, and make giggling sounds. And some versions of the legends claim that, like, a young girl of Bahamian descent gave Otto the doll as a gift or as a, like, quote, retaliation for a wrongdoing. And then other stories claim that the doll moved voodoo figurines around the room and was aware of what went on around him. So, if you go visit this doll, it's like, it just looks creepy, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And like they said, I would have to agree that it almost seems like it would be like a window display. Like it's pretty big. It's not a doll that like a kid would carry around and play with. Like it's probably 2 feet high. It's kind of big.
Mm-hmm.
And then the doll itself, it's just like pieced together fabric. So like it's clearly old, and so I guess maybe that attributes to or can be attributed to like why it looks so creepy to us, because it doesn't seem like a doll that we would have nowadays, right? Most dolls are kind of plastic, or it just looks different. His face is like stitched together. It's just he just looks creepy. But they say that speaking of him being like aware of what goes on around him, is like when you go visit the doll, it's in a glass case in this museum, the East Martello Museum in Key West. So it's now a popular tourist attraction. It was placed there or donated there in 1994. But they tell you when you go in there that if you want to take a picture, you have to ask the doll. You have to ask him, like, do you want to take a picture of him? You have to ask him first, and you don't get an answer. I mean, he's not going to say yes or no, but you're like supposed to approach the doll, ask like, "Hey, Robert, can I take a picture of you?" And they say if you don't, like, some eerie things can happen. But kind of what they say is that the owner of the doll, Robert Eugene Otto, triggered the doll's supernatural powers by blaming all of his like childhood mishaps on the doll. So who knows if it was like actually haunted when he got it, or if something happened when, you know, he's like blaming stuff on the doll and I don't know, something manifests and he's like, what the heck, you know?
Yeah.
But speaking of, you know, like you have to ask it for a picture and whatever, according to like local folklore, the doll has caused car accidents, broken bones, job loss, divorce, and just like a whole bunch of other misfortunes. And a lot of museum visitors supposedly experience like post visit misfortunes for quote unquote failing to respect Robert. So whether that's like if you don't ask for a picture, like I remember them saying if you don't like either people report things that happen to them or like your camera might break, the photo might not, you know, come through if it's like a film, like it might not develop correctly. Um but yeah, they said that he gets about 2 to 3 apology letters a day. So this
Wow.
doll gets letters of people either in there not respecting him, and who knows what that means, if it's like they don't believe it, they don't ask for to take a picture, or you know, while they're there they kind of make fun of it, call it ugly, or say he looks creepy, I don't know. But yeah, they get 2 to 3 apology letters per day. And on the website that I was kind of looking up more detailed information on his history, they share there's she has like a caretaker. Sorry, he has a caretaker, and she's the one who actually like opens up the letters, and I guess we'll like read them to him.
Wow. So people really seem to take this serious.
Yeah.
And
Afterwards.
but also just the fact that the doll is reportedly haunted. I mean, it's behind glass and everything. It's not like you can walk up and touch it. Um, there is a movie made about Robert the doll. It's called Robert, and it's a horror movie. So it is kind of famous in the same way the Annabelle doll
Yeah.
is famous. And you know, haunted dolls kind of sound silly to a lot of people, but I think it's important to take it seriously because recently there was a gentleman who his name was Dan Rivera, and he was a paranormal investigator who actually was in possession of the Annabelle doll, the original that the movie was based on, and he died mysteriously while on tour with the Annabelle doll. Who has said that, you know, just like with Robert the doll, you're not supposed to remove them. You know, they don't like being disturbed.
Yeah.
And so this man named Dan um died mysteriously while in possession of this doll. He went on tour to show it. And can you guess where he died while he had this doll?
Where?
Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh.
Arguably one of the other probably most famously haunted places in the United States. And so when you hear stories like that, you realize that, you know, maybe the haunted doll, the whole idea behind it isn't as silly as maybe it seems at first. Just kind of interesting. And I myself, I've been to Key West many times. I've never actually visited the doll. It's just not something I ever did, but it is a very well-known story, not just in Florida or in Key West, but it's a famous story worldwide. And like I said, there is a movie that you can check out.
Yeah, I do think there's some validity to like the haunted dolls stories too, especially like the Annabelle doll story and how that progressed. It's freaky too. So yeah, I'm taking no chances when it comes to Robert the doll. I didn't even feel comfortable to ask him for a picture. I was just like, nope, it's enough to see him and witness it. I did not take a picture because I didn't want to ask. I think at that time too, I had like a new like little Casio digital camera, and I like didn't want it to break. So I was like, I'm not even gonna ask. I'm not even gonna
Yeah.
try.
You were more worried about your camera than being haunted.
Yeah, I was. So I was like, I don't want him to break my camera.
Yeah. The part of the legend that is kind of silly to me is that you would even ask the doll. Like, all you have to do is ask him to take a photo, and he's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Like,
Yeah, he can't answer you. So what if the answer's no?
right, you wouldn't know. Maybe you would know if the answer
Yeah,
was
maybe
no.
that's just the vibe. Maybe he
Yeah.
would give you a vibe and you would know.
You
But
can tell the
I don't know.
vibe.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not even gonna try. And I mean, when I went, you're in a group of people too. So it's like a whole room of people just standing around this doll.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was taking no chances.
Nice.
Yeah. The next destination in Florida, still in Key West, is the Ernest Hemingway House.
Which is rumored to be haunted by the author, his second wife, Pauline, and many of his six-toed cats. So I guess cats that have already died, because there's all kinds of six-toed cats that are still alive running around there today. This is a place that I've gone to in Key West. I've toured the house. Like some of the other places I've mentioned, it is rumored to be haunted. I didn't witness any of that or experience any of that. It's a really cool house. I was more impressed with the like botanical gardens they have outside. Like the grounds of the property is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that more than the house itself, but the house itself is really cool to walk around. They have a lot of his actual like stuff in there still, like typewriters and his bed, the actual bed he slept in. Um, and yeah, seeing the six-toed cats is really cool too.
Yeah, when I went there, we didn't go in. I can't remember if it was just like we didn't choose to. I want to say like it wasn't open, but I could be mistaken. But it's located at 907 Whitehead Street in Key West, again, like we mentioned. But when I went, I remember same thing, being impressed by like the garden out front and the grounds, and seeing the six-toed cats. And we saw there was quite a few out in the like yard and stuff, and kind of up by there's like a gate and like a fence around it. But yeah, it's open to the public. You can go visit it. It's like a museum, like Jared said. I didn't go in, so but you know, it'd be cool to visit the historic home. A lot of people report sightings of Hemingway, just either like on the veranda or like working at his typewriter, and then his wife Pauline in the garden, and then just like sounds of a typewriter clicking. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think he was there when he wrote like a lot of his stories and books.
Yep. Yeah, the history of Hemingway himself is really cool to dive into. He survived 2 plane crashes in his lifetime,
Wow.
which is really crazy.
Yeah.
And anybody that's been to Key West or knows really about the history of Key West, Hemingway is kind of a big deal there. They have a festival every year. In fact, they have a parade every year with hundreds of men that look like Ernest Hemingway. So they actually have a Hemingway parade where everybody dresses up as him and goes down the streets of Key West. So it's like a whole festival.
It's kind of like in Charleston they have like the Bill Murray, like they do the polar plunge, right?
They do a polar plunge, yeah, and everybody dresses up as a different Bill Murray character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
But I
fun.
think a lot of it is his character in the Life Aquatic. You see a lot of guys with like the orange
Yeah.
caps on, and yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Hemingway is kind of a local legend in Key West. There's a number of guys down there, and we're gonna do an actual episode on Key West at some point. So I don't want to get too deep into the like history of Key West, but Hemingway's one of those figures that's like really prominent in the city.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Shout out Key West. We love Key West.
yeah, it really is one of my favorite places in the States.
Yeah. All right. The last place in Florida, last stop, is Kerr City. And this is a place that we have not been to, but it was kind of on the list of things like you can't talk about haunted places in Florida and not mention Kerr City. And while like researching for this, we kind of realized it sounds a lot like a scary movie that we just watched last night. But we'll get into that. So Kerr City is an abandoned town. At the time, it had a population of 100 people, so it's like a very tiny town. But it's located in Ocala Forest. It was just like a thriving like citrus town, but there were freezes in 1894 and 1895 that just kind of like ruined the crops, I guess, and left the whole town deserted. So there's not a whole like large history of paranormal activity here, but people report seeing apparitions like the quote unquote dark man, which is a spectral figure described to be wearing either a hat or a hooded coat. And we just went and saw a movie called
Last night.
Yes, literally last night, which is like we're researching this and we're like, oh my gosh, what?
Yeah.
So the movie is called Shelby Oaks. And the premise of this movie is that there's this town, Shelby Oaks, that's like abandoned and like, you know, had all this negative things happen to it. And, you know, there's like hauntings. So we won't go into that movie, but like it's eerily similar.
Yeah. And the movie was like a cross between a documentary and like found footage, which are somewhat similar but different. And I always find that found footage, that genre, is extra creepy. And you see a lot of those movies today. And that's where I think, not to get too far off topic, but like the film The Blair Witch Project was kind of the first of that genre.
Yeah.
It kind of started the found footage genre, which nowadays every other scary movie, every other horror movie that comes out is found footage. And I don't think The Blair Witch Project, a lot of people nowadays kind of write that movie off as being silly. But I don't think it gets its flowers enough, and I don't think it gets enough credit. That movie started that genre. And as silly as that movie may kind of seem today, because we know it's not real, I remember when that movie came out. And a lot of people might not know this, especially if they're younger, but when that movie came out, for a little while, there was debate on whether or not that was real or not, which seems crazy because nowadays, like I said, found footage is such like a popular genre that you already know it's not real. But back then, that was like the first real found footage film. And people really like, there was like debate on whether or not it was real or not. And so I think it's just important to kind of point that out, that movie like really kind of started that, and it's one of the greats, and I don't think it gets enough credit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, that Shelby Oaks movie that we watched last night, it was pretty good.
it was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
I would recommend it. And when or if you watch it, you can think about Curse City.
Yep.
And if you've ever been to Curse City, because like there was a lot of, when we were looking it up, there were a lot of accounts. We ended up kind of just not really wanting to include them. But it seems like there's quite a few people who have had experiences here, kind of in the middle of the woods at this abandoned town. So if you're one of them, we would love to hear from you. Leave us a comment or, send us your story. You can email us, TemporaryLocalsPod@gmail. Alrighty. As we leave Florida and we head into our next state, which is our final state on this stop of Ghosts of Dixie, we're heading to Louisiana. And most importantly, I guess we should say, we're going basically just to New Orleans. So we spent a lot of time in New Orleans. We did a specific episode on New Orleans, but in that episode, it was more of like a travel style. So we didn't go into a lot of like the haunting or ghosts or lore or anything like that. We did talk about our ghost tour, but not specifically any of the stories.
Yeah, we discussed the ghost tour and our experiences on it, and we also talked about, like we even mentioned earlier in this episode, the St. Louis Cemetery and kind of some of the voodoo history. But yeah, that was more of just a travel episode for the podcast. That was episode 4, I believe. So for this, we're going to go into a little bit more of the specific ghost stories of New Orleans, because like Savannah, New Orleans is also the other city that's kind of disputed as being the most haunted in the United States.
Yeah. And so the first place that we're going to talk about is Jackson Square, which we did kind of mention in that other episode. But Jackson Square is historically a site of public executions and just public punishment, including whippings. So at the time, during the 18th and 19th centuries, this was known as the Place d'Armes. So it reminds me of like the Plaza de Armas in Cusco in Peru.
Yeah.
But now it hosts the iconic like Andrew Jackson statue with the horse. It's a cool statue. It's a beautiful square. But stories state that the there's a man named Louis Congo, Luis. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But he was a former enslaved man that was given a tough choice to either remain enslaved or become the executioner. So from 1718 to 1762, roughly like 44 years, it's estimated that thousands of people were killed in the square.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that we learned about the executions on our ghost tour because we went by Jackson Square, and our ghost tour guide had mentioned that they had many executions there, and people would come from all over the city to come and witness these live executions, even children. But that's one part of that story that I don't remember learning on the ghost tour was about Louise Congo.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
So that was really interesting to me.
Yeah. I do remember from the ghost tour, I think she said that there was like an age, like you had to be 10 years old to go witness an execution in the square. And so she mentioned like there were kids that, because it was like a spectacle, you know, it was like nowadays we're like horrified and we would never take our kids to go see an execution in the square, right? But at that time it was like the kids were like, I can't wait till I turn 10 so I can go witness an execution.
Yeah. Well, it was before they had YouTube, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good way to get the kids off the tablet. Let's go down and witness an execution.
Come on, kids. It's Saturday. We're going down to the
Get
execution.
off TikTok, yeah.
Yeah. Next up is the Bourbon Hotel. So this is sort of in the same area. It's close to Jackson Square. It's adjacent to the St. Louis Cathedral, which hosts the famous statue that they will refer to as Touchdown Jesus, because I guess his hands are kind of up in the air.
Raised,
yeah. Like praising, but a lot of people think it
And
looks like he's saying touchdown.
That's the statue that you can see the shadow of it on the building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So this hotel actually was originally intended to be a theater. Plans were drafted in 1806, but they were actually delayed by the War of 1812, so the building wasn't finished until 1815. So kind of already started off on like a halted start. 1 year later, so it was built in 1815. 1 year later, 1816, the Theater de Orleans was destroyed by arson, and it was later rebuilt. And so it rebuilt as a theater, but also they added on like a ballroom where they still host weddings there today, and people report seeing like ghosts dancing in the ballroom. Yeah.
Interesting.
And so in the 19th century, they would have these infamous quadroon balls. And this was kind of like a place of scandal and matchmaking between like the French and Creole people. So this is like, it's going to contrast with like what happens after this. So the term quadroon referred to women who were a quarter African and considered to be like the most beautiful and exotic of all the women in New Orleans at this time. And so they would, it went from being this like place where they would have these balls for these like matchmaking ceremonies, to in the late 1960s, it was converted to a convent for a short period of time before the convent and the parish kind of outgrew the building and sold it. So when I was reading about this, and it's important history because it relates to like the ghosts that are seen there. But it was just interesting that somebody mentioned like only New Orleans would have a building that was once like kind of like a scandalous like matchmaking ballroom like converted to
a convent.
Yeah. So talking about some of the like apparitions or ghosts here, there's the ghost children. So haunting sounds of children's laughter kind of echo in the hallways of the hotel, thought to be the children who perished of yellow fever that were kept and cared for by the nuns. And guests in the hotel have reported feeling like tugging on the back of their shirts, almost as if like a kid is like kind of like pulling up and like, you know, tugging on their shirt just to turn around and find that, you know, behind them is completely empty.
Creepy.
Yeah, I don't know. This reminds me of that story of the kids in Savannah in that house with the billiard balls that would it says that their ghosts would throw the billiard balls down the stairs, like
Yeah.
playful children ghosts.
Yeah. I feel like children's spirits always seem to be like more playful and
Yeah.
mischievous, you know what I mean? As opposed to
Yeah.
like there's like different levels of scariness when it comes to ghosts. And I feel like adult ghosts are scary, but it's like there's different steps down, because even though the children ghosts seem a little more playful and not as like malicious, they're scarier to me for whatever reason. Kids are creepy, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it's like it goes from them and then it goes to dolls, and to me, like, dolls are the most creepy,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I could follow that same path
Yeah.
of ratings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in general child ghosts are, creepy. But I do like these stories in particular of like the they're not hurting you. They're playful.
Yeah.
So I do like those stories. Opposite those, room 644 in the Bourbon Hotel is allegedly the most haunted room in that entire hotel. And so, for nearly a century, rumors have circulated that a nun of the Sisters of the Holy Family, which was the nunnery, committed suicide in this particular room. And so, they moved from this location. Who knows if that had anything to do with it? What I read said that like their convent kind of got way too big, and they did have to move, but they never confirmed or denied that. So people kind of speculate like the lack of denial is maybe confirmation all of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that is the ghost that haunts room 644.
Yeah. And it's kind of like what we were saying earlier about you could have a entire hotel that's haunted, but a lot of times there's like a specific room where something happened, and that specific room is the most haunted.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So it's like there's something definitely went down in there. There's something that happened that caused that, energy or whatever to stay there. And the last ghost of the Bourbon Hotel is the Confederate soldier ghost. So people report seeing a Confederate soldier limping down the hallways. And I guess you can tell by the uniform that it's a Confederate soldier, but they say that his uniform is always tattered, bloody, and it looks like he's already like been through battle and like didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what I would do if I saw a Confederate soldier ghost like walking down the hallways. Like I don't know. I feel like I would freeze.
Yeah.
Like fight, flight, or I would freeze.
Yeah. You wouldn't fight or flight. You would freeze.
I wouldn't know what. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to do. Okay. Well, the last destination in New Orleans is the Andrew Jackson Hotel. And this is in the heart of the French Quarter. It has been listed on the National Register for Historic Places since 1965. And we actually visited this on our ghost tour when we went to New Orleans. It's a pretty building.
It is.
The lot that the hotel sits on was the location of a, quote, all-boys boarding school, which was just like the politically correct term for an orphanage back then, I guess.
Well, I think that's probably the politically correct term today. I think that's what they call They don't call them orphanages today.
Yeah.
Now they're called boarding schools, but back then I'm sure it was probably called an orphanage.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I got it backwards.
Yeah, they weren't PC back then.
Well, in 1794, 2 fires swept through New Orleans, and they just consumed the all-boys boarding school or orphanage, whichever you prefer. Some say that 5 boys were killed in the fire, and it's said that you can hear them playing in the courtyard in the middle of the night.
Creepy.
Yeah.
There's those haunted kids again, like I said.
Yeah. But again, like they sound playful, right?
Yeah. I wonder if ghosts haunt each other. Like, I wonder if, like, the children spirits go up to that Confederate soldier and tug on his coattails. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then he turns around and he's like, damn kids.
Yeah, I wonder if they can interact with each other.
Probably.
I don't know, because what if they're from, yeah, I
Different
don't
time
know.
periods. Yeah.
Different time periods, and it's just like, obviously, I don't understand
Yeah.
ghosts.
What if they try to like compete to see who can scare each other the most, or who
It's like
can?
Monsters Inc. of the ghost world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how they get their energy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, that's funny. Well, so after that, all boys school burned down, it was rebuilt as a courthouse, and that kind of has its own like history. But later, I guess it was converted to a hotel, room 208. So again, there's a specific room. So 208 is known as the haunted room. And there are reported paranormal sightings, and most notably that of a child named Armand. So I think this is where our playful children ghosts kind of stops.
mm-hmm.
There's different accounts that vary on the circumstances of his death, between being thrown from the balcony or simply committing suicide. But so guests report seeing like Andrew Jackson himself, and they say that they'll see like an apparition parading around the hotel, especially on the second floor. So although some speculate, like we kind of talked about earlier, like why would he haunt this hotel just because it was named after him? So because of that, some people speculate that they're not actually seeing Andrew Jackson, that this is actually the apparition haunting room 208.
Okay. And my question is, though, are the people that are reporting that they saw Andrew Jackson, is this from like back in the day, or is this still currently? Because my thinking is, I wouldn't know Andrew Jackson if I saw him. I wouldn't know Andrew Jackson. They all looked the same back then. I wouldn't know, oh, that's Andrew Jackson. I wouldn't know him aside from George Washington or who, like.
Yeah, it's because we don't carry a lot of cash anymore. Isn't he on the $20 bill?
Yeah. I would recognize him now that you say that. Benjamin Franklin. Hey, I know you from my money. I've rolled you up many times.
Oh my God. Oh,
yeah.
no, that's Washington.
Oh, yeah. What a one. Yeah, let's be honest. I've put you in many of thongs.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, that's a funny thing of like, I bet they're rolling in their graves.
Yeah. They talk about like who they're going to put on the next like U.S. currency. They talk about like the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman. She deserves to be on like a bill, a United States bill. And I just think, can't wait to put her in a stripper's thong.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
And then some presidents only get put on like a shitty coin.
Yeah, I know. What is that?
Like Abraham Lincoln's on the 1 cent, right?
Yeah.
And
on
it's
the
like,
penny.
Yeah, he's on a penny. And he's like one of the most popular and well-known presidents.
Yeah.
Who like freed the slaves. And he's on a penny. And meanwhile, fucking Benjamin Franklin's on the hundo, you know?
Yeah. He wasn't even a president.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, anyways.
Interesting.
We'll have to look into that. History of the monies.
History of the monies.
Well, this episode, I mean, thank you guys for hanging out with us this long. It's been probably one of our longest episodes, but we did
cover a lot.
We did cover a lot, yeah. Ghosts, cemeteries, battleships, historical buildings, haunted dolls, man-made lakes. We debated the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah. Talked about the metrics for judging whether or not you're in the South. So feel free to reach out and complain. All our listeners from North Carolina are going to be like, what the hell? We're Southern. What you talking about, boy?
Well, you can get sweet tea in North Carolina.
You can.
So
I said
by
it's,
your standards.
I said it's barely the South. I didn't say it wasn't the South. But if you think about it, South Carolina is like the epitome of the South. Because South Carolina, for
Literally
those who might
says
not
South.
know, we are the first ones, the state, that seceded from the Union.
Yeah.
The first state.
Yeah. Fort Jackson.
Yep.
No, Fort Sumter. Not Fort Jackson.
Fort Sumter. Yeah.
Fort Sumter. I was like, that's wrong. Fort Jackson is in Columbia.
Yeah.
Fort Sumter is in Charleston.
Yeah.
We've been recording for like ever.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate you hanging out with us. Once again, you can find us on other socials, Temporary Locals. You can find us on Spotify and YouTube and Apple Podcasts. And we're on Instagram at Temporary Locals Podcast. So if you want to check us out there, we post pictures and things related to our episodes. You can find Jared on Instagram at Rover_Stover and at Rover Stover on YouTube. I am on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Mego Goes Global. And if you made it this far, we would really appreciate it if you'd share the episode, like, comment, leave us a review, tell us what you think. We went over a lot, so if you've been to any of these places, we would love to hear from you.
Yep. And if you go to any of these places, tag us. Tag the podcast.
Yeah, we'll put you on our Instagram.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys. Well, with that,
I'm Jared.
and I'm Megan. Thanks for exploring with us.
And remember, be a local anywhere you go.
Bye.
Bye.